Welcome to All Pro Football Data. My name is Jim Coburn, and today's episode we're talking about NFL wide receiver signing, specifically the signing of Jaylen Waddle of the Miami Dolphins. So, what we're going to look at today is we're going to look at his contract to see if it's a gross overpay. We're going to look at the details of the entire contract. We're also going to look at his pre-draft profile to kind of see what type of a prospect he was coming out of college, because that can sometimes inform us about what they might be at the NFL level. And we're also going to look at his NFL production from a statistical standpoint. So stay tuned into the end of the video where I give my final outlook on this contract for Jaylen Waddle. But let's get into his data. So first off, the setup here. So Jaylen Waddle was drafted by the Miami Dolphins in the 2021 NFL draft class at pick 6. Since that time, he has started 47 games, accumulated 3,385 receiving yards, and 18 touchdowns. Not bad. Waddle is the top complementary wide receiver to Tyreek Hill and one of the NFL's top 5 passing offenses since 2022, and it was actually the top passing offense in 2023. But would you be surprised to know that Waddle was a bit of an outlier in his pre-draft profile? Well, we're going to get into that. So first off, in terms of his offensive market share data at the college football level, his data was a little inconsistent. He had a 66 percentile receiving market share score, a 35.99 percentile total offensive market share score, and a 32.35 touchdown market share production score. When you look at the starter averages and the Pro Bowl averages and All Pro averages at the position, Waddle wasn't near any of those types of players. So he was a little bit of a risk being selected number 6 overall. Now, in terms of his efficiency scores, this is the biggest thing where Waddle really excelled, because when you look at his efficiency, he did really well in terms of his yards per reception and his touchdowns per touch. These were two areas where, from a per touch standpoint, even though he wasn't the most productive player, he was efficient when the football was in his hands at the college football level. So these were positives for him to make you go, okay, he didn't have high usage in college, but maybe at the NFL level, he could be good because when he was used, he was effective and efficient as a wide receiver. Then, of course, we look at athleticism traits for him. He had a 78.71 speed score for his size. I don't have any explosive lower body strength score or flexibility score because he didn't do the vertical or broad jump, nor the short shuttle three cone to determine those areas of his body of work as an athlete. But still, he ran a decent 40-yard dash, which put him in the starter Pro Bowl All-Pro thresholds at the position based on his athleticism. And when you get to adjusted production, this is where he looks a little bit better. When you look at his adjusted production, which takes a look at his age, his level of competition, and the team that he was on for his production, he did fairly well. His age score was 72 percentile, his MSA was 64, and his pass score was 76. When you look at the starter averages, he's well above the starter averages, but when you take a look at the All Pro and Pro Bowl averages, he's not quite near those areas. So again, based on his pre-draft profile, he looked like a wide receiver prospect that was a huge risk. Now it paid off, but he was a huge risk nevertheless, based on how prior wide receivers have performed in the past. Uh, Jaylen Waddle, the outlier? Well, yeah, Jaylen Waddle had an overall data score of 65.47 out of 100. Since 1969, only 2 out of 9 wide receivers with a data score between 50 to 70 selected in the first round went on to become 90 plus percentile NFL wide receivers. Waddle is the most productive amongst the bunch. However, outliers typically either transcend their data or go on to disappoint over time. More research is needed to determine Waddle's spectrum, but he has been a productive wide receiver out of the group listed so far. So I don't really see that changing in the future for him. I think he's going to be exactly what he has been so far at the NFL level, which is the next section of the video that we're going to go to. So in terms of his NFL production, now the chart that you're looking at right here takes data from 1994 into the 2023 NFL season and era adjusts it as well. So this is the averages over the last 5 years for each of these scores right here. So it takes a look at his targets, his receptions, his yards per route run, touchdowns, total first downs. Success percentage is an interesting statistic. It takes a look at how successful, or how often he gets a first down per play that he's given the football in terms of catching the football, which is an interesting statistic. Also, his career long data is in here. His receptions per game is also in here, as well as yards per game, catch percentage, and yards per target. All these areas for Waddle have been pretty decent for him over the last couple years in terms of his production. So ever since his rookie season, he has been fairly decent in terms of production, which is a positive for him. Now, when you get to his other data points, such as drop percentage, quarterback rating, TD percentage, and first down percentage, his 2022 season was much better than his rookie season or his season last year, where he missed some games last year. But overall, 2022 was sort of his breakout year. His sophomore season is where he kind of transcended a lot of different things and was an extremely efficient wide receiver that year in terms of those particular metrics here. And when you look at micro production, so this is a per snap basis, his yards before contact per reception was also very good in 2022. His yak, or yards after contact, also was decent in 2022 and 2023 in the 80 percentile, which is exactly the type of area that you need to be in or want to be in. His average depth of target, or ADOT, was improved from his rookie season, and his amount of broken tackles per reception also improved in 2023 overall. So he's a pretty decent wide receiver from a micro perspective. So not only is he very productive, but he also is decent in terms of his micro production, which is something that you want to see from every wide receiver. Also, when you look at his overall macro production, overall micro production, his overall reception score, which is combines macro and micro, and his TDs and first down percentages combined area. Um, Again, 2022 was his best season by far in terms of his production. And in terms of 2023 was a bit of a dip off in his production, but he is better than what he was as a rookie. So as a rookie, his efficiency wasn't the best, but he has improved in that area in his career. And I don't really see any reason for his production to slow down any. I think the best might be actually ahead of himself, really, in many ways. So I think that's why he makes such an exciting wide receiver prospect to kind of examine. Then, of course, we get to his actual contract. The reason why you're watching this video right now. So, taking a look at his contract, it's actually very team friendly. So, Jaylen Waddle has averaged an overall NFL wide receiver production rank of 17 out of every single wide receiver in the NFL in his career from 2021 to 2023. His best season, of course, was in 2022, where he had a sixth ranking. So, he was the sixth best wide receiver from a macro production standpoint in 2022, and micro production was also very decent that year as well. But overall, his average for the last three seasons has been 17. When you look at the Waddle's cap hit for 2024, which is this season, it's only going to be $9 million. So don't look at the signing bonus and all that extra money that he's going to get up front, all that kind of stuff. That stuff really doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Again, I'm not going to fault the guy for having a massive signing bonus and stuff like that. All I really care about is what is actually going to affect the cap for that year, because that's going to affect the different prospects that you're going to be able to hold on to your roster. And from that perspective, they've done fantastic with this contract. So first off, 2024, $9 million. So he would be the 32nd cap hit for that year at the wide receiver position. That's not bad at all, especially considering that he is a 17 ranked wide receiver over the last three seasons in terms of his overall production. So again, he's shown in the past to be a 17 wide receiver up to a 6 in terms of his highest sort of ranking as a wide receiver in terms of his production. So this is a perfect deal. You're getting massive value from this season's cap hit because of this overall data here. Now, when you get into 2025, his cap goes up a little bit more in terms of the overall percentage of the cap that he makes up is 7% for 2025 and 2026. But even 7% of the cap, based on the NFL wide receivers right now in terms of how their cap hits work, he would still only be the 16th cap hit that year. And again, he's averaged 17 in terms of his overall wide receiver rank. So that's right in line with what is expected. So there's no overpay or any sort of crazy, ridiculous stuff here, if you will, in terms of his contract here. He's basically being paid for what he has been over the last 3 years, which is great. It's a great number, for any player to hit. When you get into 2027, he is going to be 12th in terms of his cap hit rank, because his overall percentage of the league cap is going to be 8.88%. So again, the overall hit for most wide receivers at that area, and again, this is just based on future projections. So this might be a little different when we get that far in the future, or it might be worse or better. But this is just sort of an estimated league hit that year, which is going to be 12th. So his overall rank is going to be 12th, and that's the first area where it's kind of still on par with what his production has been. He's not being paid as a top 10 wide receiver. He's being paid as sort of a top 12 to 16 wide receiver, which is kind of what he's been in his career up to the last 3 seasons. So again, another contract year where it's pretty much on par. The only year where he's kind of overvalued is when you get to 2028, because in 2028 he's going to be paid a cap hit of $31 million, and his league cap is 9.3%, which would put him in the 7 rank in terms of overall cap hit at the wide receiver position. So that is where he's a little bit overvalued when he gets to that point. And this is also because he hasn't really proved that he can be a top 6 wide receiver consistently over the course of his career. By that time, he might already be that. He might already have logged multiple top 10 wide receiver seasons, making that contract perfectly on par with what is expected. But that's the only year where it's overvalued. But that's also the year where the cap hit, the dead cap hit, which again is the money that typically will be affected if you cut him, is only going to be $3 million. So if he hasn't lived up to the expectations of his contract, which is basically what he's been over the last 3 years, then you can cut him easily and save yourself some money long term. So this is a great contract extension. It really is. It's a phenomenal contract extension because you're paying him exactly what he's worth. You are eventually, towards the end of the contract, going to run into some issues from a cap standpoint where he may not live up to those expectations. But by the time it gets to that point, you already can cut bait on him and really not hurt yourself too much. I mean, $11 million cap hit, or dead cap hit, I should say, in 2026, which is 3 seasons from now, is reasonable as well. And so if you need to cut bait on him early, you can. You just are kind of locked in for 2 seasons, and then it's reasonable to be able to kind of carry 11 million, 7 million, or $3 million dead cap hit. So this is a great contract. It really is. It's a really reasonable contract and nothing out of the ordinary here. So overall outlook for Jaylen Waddle, I would say Jaylen Waddle has been a top 16 wide receiver on average since 2021. I don't see Waddle overtaking Tyreek Hill's production until Hill finally retires or goes to another team. But the contract he signed is very team friendly, and there is no cap hits that seem questionable until 2028. Overall, I'd give this contract a solid B. It paid Waddle within what his expectations are long term, but it doesn't give the team any advantages on the cap in terms of his production until other than 2024. So there's no massive advantages in terms of his production versus what he's paid other than 2024. And because of that, that's why I kind of give it a B instead of an A. You kind of would want to see, again, you're going to have to pay the guy what he's worth, which is what they did. But sometimes you want to have a guy in a contract where he's overproducing what he's being paid. Now, again, the other stuff, the signing bonus, all that other kind of stuff, I really don't have much care for those kinds of things. I mean, again, it's just extra money that doesn't affect the cap, which is the most important thing in terms of organizing your team. So overall, good on him. He's done really well over the last 3 seasons. This is a great reward for him, and I'm excited to see what he does in the future. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you feel about Jaylen Waddle's contract? Do you like it? Do you hate it? What would you score it as? And check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/jcoburn. Also check out my X, formerly known as Twitter account, at Geometrics. and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.